Welcome back to Mean Streets, where each week we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir.
I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth, and we are your cinematic sleuths. Today's case is 2011's Drive, starring Ryan Gosling, Carey Mulligan, Bryan Cranston, Ron Pearlman, and Albert Brooks, with a screenplay by Hossein Amini and directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. The tagline for Drive is: a mysterious Hollywood film stuntman gets in trouble with gangsters when he tries to help his neighbor's husband rob a pawn shop while serving as his getaway driver.
Hello, Matt.
Hello, Luke.
It's time to pour the whiskey and dive into this.
It is.
Neo-noir.
Get the whiskey out of the bottom drawer and pour ourselves a slug and get going on Drive.
Indeed. Before we do that, though, I just want to quickly remind everybody to, if you haven't yet, subscribe on Apple and Spotify and YouTube. And also, if you're liking Mean Streets and what we do, reviews go a long way. On Spotify, you can leave a rating of up to 5 stars, which, we love, obviously. You can leave 5 Falcons for us. And on Apple, you can do the same and also write a review about how much you love what we do. Well, at least we hope you love what we do. And also, if you want to talk to us outside, off of, commenting and things like that on Spotify and YouTube, you can also chat with us on Blue Sky. And our handle is Mean Streets, the Film Noir podcast. We also have a Facebook group. You can join us there. That's slowly growing. So that's all the housekeeping out of the way. My glass is full of whiskey, and I'm ready to dive into to Drive.
What fun this is! If fun is the right word, yeah. Without giving anything away about ratings and things, I love this film as well.
Yeah, I think my people are going to be able to guess my rating, probably, maybe. But
I suspect so.
I mean, if you listen to our holiday specials where we did a top 5, or not top 5, but essential film noirs, I picked Drive as one of mine.
Yeah,
I think as a modern neo-noir of the 2010s, it's unmissable and needs to be in your collection and is fantastic.
End of show.
End of show.
I would echo all that. I think as neo-noirs go, this is as good as they get, I think. And again, this is something I bang on about all the time, but done in a very comparatively short space of time.
Hour and 40.
Does what it has to do and gets out again. Very, very tight. Not a moment wasted, and not an ounce of fat on it.
It's tight like Christina Hendricks' trousers.
Okay.
That might get cut, or it might not. We'll see.
I wondered what you were going to say.
Oh, man. Hey, it's an R-rated movie. This is an R-rated podcast.
Absolutely.
This is one of the few neo-noirs that I have the privilege to see in cinema. And I am so glad I was able to see it in cinema. I think I mentioned this on the 5 Essential episode, but I'll say it again here. It was complete fluke that I saw this. I had just come back from a weekend in the Lake District and was kind of on a bit glum because I don't want to go back to real life. I had a fun, really nice fun few days out in nature reading Tolkien. It was great. And to sort of continue the holiday vibe, me and my friend went to go to the cinema, and the only thing that looked remotely watchable was this. And I was like, oh yeah, I like Ryan Gosling. He's cool. Okay, cool. The premise sounded fun. Yeah, rock on. And it was just like being blasted back in your seat from the get-go, like in a positive way. Like it was such an experience seeing this on the big screen, and I love it. I love being able to do that. But you weren't able to. You saw it at home, right?
Yeah, I didn't. It essentially passed me by.
Yeah, easily done.
Which is perhaps something we'll talk about, marketing of it. But a very good friend of mine said to me, "Have you seen Drive?" Because he knows he's a cinema fan, general cinema fan, and he knows I'm a noir fan. And I said, "No, don't even know what it is. Don't know what you're talking about," sort of thing. And he said, "You must see it." So I thought, well, okay, sort of didn't really do anything about that. And then the next time I saw him, he presented me with the Blu-ray. And he said, "I've bought it you, so
Oh.
just watch it." I mean, that's how much he loves it.
Nice.
And so I did, and wow, I was absolutely blown away by it. For the reason, for a lot of reasons which we'll get into, but mainly for how hard hitting it is, and how tight that screenplay is, and how how efficient it is, and how well acted it is. Because
yes,
I mean, I would go so far as to say there isn't a bad performance in this film.
No, there's not. I agree.
There are people who absolutely stand out that we'll touch on when we get into the casting of it. But even like the smallest part in it, even the kid, I think he's really good in it.
Yeah,
and that's the
even the porn
for me.
star that had one line.
Yeah, even the stripper. Yeah. It's. I think it's a great film. A great film.
Yeah, it's very
my mate for passing it on.
Yeah, I like it. I've been in love with this film since I first saw it, and I have really nothing but praise for it. But I guess we might as well go behind the camera and talk about how this thing got made. So Drive cost $15 million, and its box office return globally was $81.4 million. So it definitely made its money back. Even when you factor in marketing budget, this thing made its money back. Across the board, it was a hit. There was this really wasn't one of those movies that was like, split. It's got a high rating percentage, I believe. But the making of it is interesting, I think, because when we look at like Nicholas Refn, so Gosling was attached to this film before he was as a director, which I just find very fascinating. And once Gosling was attached to it, because the film was, I think, with Universal for a while, and they were trying another director, and even for the star, they had Hugh Jackman play in talks to play the driver, and that didn't work out, which we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. But it's interesting. Once Gosling got attached, he was able to choose the director, and he chose Refn, which is I think was like a career first for him. But that tells you about his rising star power, but also his like acumen for understanding people who will understand a certain project. Because talk about nailing the right director for the right film.
Absolutely. And I think Refn signed on straight away, didn't he? Once he'd heard about it. So both of them have got a bit of business acumen here and a bit of cinematic acumen. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those ideal situations where great lead actor with a great director and a great script.
Yeah. Yes.
It doesn't happen often. It happens less often than people might think. But this is a perfect example of it, I think. And you're absolutely right about Gosling being on the money. Knowing exactly what he wants and how much clout he had to be able to say it at this stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad he did.
I am too, because Refn has a pretty interesting filmography. I mean, his first film was a film called Pusher from 1996. It's a Danish film, so he's a Danish filmmaker, but a lot of his films are crime related or crime adjacent, and Pusher, I believe, Pusher had Mads Mikkelsen, and that was Mads' film debut as well, which everyone loves Mads Mikkelsen. He had a string of other crime films. Some were good, some failed. But then in 2008 he did Bronson with Tom Hardy, which I don't know if you've ever seen Bronson.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Yeah, I liked Bronson. I didn't, that was one of those things. Like at the time, I didn't know that the Bronson guy was doing Drive, and I was like, yeah, Bronson was fantastic.
Bronson did something that doesn't happen very often these days, and that is totally pulled the rug out from under me.
Yes,
because I remember sitting watching it, going, "What is this?" Expecting a straightforward telling of Bronson's life.
Nope,
quite the opposite, and I loved it.
It's
absolutely bizarre, but in exactly the right way. The right way.
Yeah, so he has as a director, Refn has a fantastic storytelling ability, the way that he conveys narrative is very interesting. It's interesting even when the films aren't very good. So I very recently saw Neon Demon, which was one of his from a few years ago. Neon Demon and the other film Only God Forgives, which is also starred Gosling, have a very similar kind of drive aesthetic to them. It's LA, a lot of it's LA based, a lot of it's very neon lights and seedy areas and things like that. But sadly, I think Neon Demon really, really let me down narratively. But visually, I would say Refn is consistent at the visual storytelling, and even when the narrative isn't as strong, the film, you are so caught up in the scene and watching the scene and soaking up the mood that you still want to see what happens next. You're not huffing your way through or frustrated. Like, you're a little bit frustrated, but he's so good at like making things look stunning and weird and interesting that even when the narrative is letting you down, you still want to kind of hang on, I think.
Well, I would agree. And that's part of cinema, isn't it? Cinema is a visual medium before it's anything else. It's the old Hitchcock quote of, you should be able to watch any film with the sound turned down and still know what's going on, because film is meant to be visual.
Yes.
And when those visuals are so well presented, then, as long as they are, and as long as there's something to engage with you, you can sort of forgive narrative lapses, because there's something else to take their place, if you like, and something else that is impressive going on.
Yes,
because film is a collaborative enterprise. So if the DP is great and the set dressing is fabulous, the costumes, the visuals, the sound in this film is incredible.
Also the lack of sound,
and the two sort of together, if that's not too much of a juxtaposition, but you know what I mean. You can say, well, the story's not very good, but my God, it looked great. I mean, David Lynch is a great example. Who knows what's going on in a David Lynch film, but they all look, and they're shot and they're acted like within inches of their lives, and they're really good and compelling for it. And there's something similar with this. I think you're right. Even when the product, the plot itself isn't rewarding, there will be something else in a Refn film that is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this film quite clearly takes a lot of inspiration from film noir and a lot of neo noir. A lot of 1970s neo noir is very, very prevalent throughout Drive, and I love the film for that. When the book was, so it's based on a book called Drive by an author named James Salas. Have you read the book?
I haven't read the book.
It's different. It's very good. There's actually a sequel called. Do you know what the sequel's called?
Driven.
Yeah.
I don't know if I love or hate that.
When I first saw it, I was like, really? Okay. All right. Sure. The book is quite different to the film. It's not told in a linear fashion. There's a lot of flashback to a lot of stuff. The film itself cuts out a lot of that and really focuses it to be more straightforward, more linear. I would be very interested to know what some of the early drafts of the script were like, to see if that was, some of the flashbacks were involved. Because I know the screenwriter, Amini, said that this was one of the hardest books to adapt because of the non-linear approach to the to the material.
Yeah, he struggled with it, I think.
Yeah, but what's interesting is the producers clearly got the mood quickly. Because one of the producers, Adam Siegel, made the comment that this is regarding the driver himself, that basically this is the kind of character that we don't see much anymore on the big screen, and I totally agree.
Yeah, I agree.
2011, that was sort of the rise of comic book movies were really, really, Marvel was really pushing everything out. But when, sure, we've had films like Taken, but Taken's stupid. When was the last time we had a really good, solid, tough guy loner film that was critically acclaimed? There's probably something I'm forgetting, but like, I'm struggling to think what would it have been before Drive or around Drive to compare it with.
Yeah, I'm struggling as well. And so if there is one that we've overlooked, first of all, let us know. But secondly, it can't have made that much of an impression for it to have, passed everybody by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I agree that it is the sort of character you don't see anymore. And more's the pity. Very much like, for me, like some of Eastwood's roles.
Yes.
And in this particularly, I think Gosling's got sort of a sort of Steve McQueen type.
Oh, totally.
Vibe to him.
There's a bit of Bullet and Dirty Harry in here.
I was going to say this reminded me very much of Bullet.
Yes. Yes.
And to the extent that I thought, I wonder what Gosling would be like in a remake of Bullet. But
be great in that.
It'd be great. Yeah.
Depending on who's behind it, he would be great.
The fact that the driver doesn't have a name. I mean, that is an obvious Eastwood reference to the man with no name.
Yes.
And it's that sort of driven loner with a purpose, I suppose, that we lack, don't we, these days?
Yeah.
They have a sort of superficial purpose, but they always seem to end up either apologizing for it or diluting it in some way. The driver in this knows what he wants to do or what he has to do.
Yeah.
And does it and makes no apology for it. That's what I admire about this character. Noir's all about people who do bad things because that's who they are. And that's what he is, even in the hero's shoes, if you can call him the hero of the film. Perhaps we should say protagonist. In the protagonist's shoes, he makes no apology for what he does. He does what he has to do to fulfill his objective.
Yeah.
And with no dilution whatsoever. That's a bold move in this day and age, I reckon, and it really pays off. And I wish more people did it.
I do too, because any this is the thing, like any time a film harks back to this kind of noir. Take Logan, for example. The what should have been Hugh Jackman's final outing as Wolverine. That is fantastic. It's very stripped back on the comic book side, but it is lone man out to, save the life of this little girl who, whose life has been threatened. And what lengths he will go to get that done, even if it's somewhat begrudgingly, because he's not sure of himself as a hero or doesn't see himself as a hero, but he's doing the right thing. And that was a massive hit. So I feel like when people, when studios or creatives stop letting certain things get in the way and they just go with what works, it works so well because it hits so hard. I mean, that's why do people like, for example, the very first season of The Mandalorian? It is essentially a sort of noir Western. It is lone guy. You could say that he's a bounty hunter, but you could say he's an enforcer who is, out there. But now he's got this little kid. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna look after this kid? Or is he gonna dump the kid?
Yeah.
No. He might be a murderous, crazy person. Although the Mandalorian's not really crazy, but he might be this murderous vigilante kind of guy. But what's he gonna do? He does the right thing, and people connect with that so well because they're like, "What would I do in that? What would I do in that situation?" People
exactly.
that stuff.
Exactly, and it's a similar response I have to films like Unforgiven.
Yeah,
what makes that retired gunslinger who was the best there was come out of retirement, and that motivation might shift. Essentially, he might start doing it for the money, but then he realizes he's doing it for a higher reason, a higher cause. It might shift, but the fact is, he's doing what he thinks is right. And he's doing it irrespective of what society might say about it.
Yes,
because some things matter more than the law in inverted commas,
Yeah.
And there's a similar vibe with this. There's a similar requirement that the driver has to just do what he knows is right, which is to protect Irene.
Yes. It just dawned on me. Here's a question for you. Is Ryan Gosling the best modern day noir actor? Because think about it, this is not his first appearance on Mean Streets. This is his third?
Third?
Yeah.
Third?
Nice Guys.
Nice Guys, Fall Guy, and this.
this.
Well, in a very superficial way, this struck me as like the Fall Guy's darker, more dangerous.
Yeah, there
brother.
Are similarities.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'll say that just as an aside. I'd not thought about it until you just mentioned it, but I can't think of somebody who has a noir run of films, if you want to call it that are consistently good, and he has.
Yeah.
Blade Runner.
Yeah, shit. Yeah, Blade Runner. 2049. We've not done that yet, but that's another one.
One that we've not covered, but certainly will do.
We will.
Well, we'll do both of them, I suspect.
I even have the little wooden horse here on my desk.
There you go. You see.
Yeah. No.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, I think I could probably agree with that. I could probably agree with that, and I think that, he's also good as a noir hero because
both
he has
serious and funny.
Serious and funny. And what I like about him, and this is part of the reason I'm glad Hugh Jackman didn't do Drive, is that Gosling has an everyman quality about him.
Yes.
Which I don't think Jackman has necessarily.
Interesting.
I think if I'd seen this with Hugh Jackman in it, I don't think I would have necessarily. I would have thought, well, it's Hugh Jackman. He's look at him.
Yeah.
Whereas, so that when he's doing the things that he has to do, the violence that he has to do,
yeah,
I would expect that of Hugh Jackman somehow. And I know that's heavily Wolverine influenced.
Yeah. I mean, this is 2011, so by now he's had 3 outings as Wolverine in X-Men movies, and the year before, in 2009, the X-Men Origins Wolverine came out. So he's had over a decade of being the Wolverine.
Yeah, and I think that probably rubs off a lot in an audience consciousness. Whereas Gosling is, he hasn't got that identification, has he? And he doesn't look like somebody that could do you much damage. But he clearly can.
Yes.
He clearly can. Especially in this, my God. And I think that makes it all the more powerful when it happens. It's the old story of if you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, you think, blimey, I bet he's strong. I won't pick a fight with him. But you see Bruce Lee and think, look at that weedy old fella there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then when Bruce Lee tenses his muscles, you think, oh, I'm in the wrong fight here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So when they don't look imposing, it's Michael Keaton as Batman. When they don't look imposing and they turn out to be, I think that is somehow much more satisfying than seeing a bloke who looks as if he can handle himself do violent things, because he can. And that's what I like about Gosling's casting.
Yeah, I do too. It's funny because there's the talk of town that is there are no more film stars anymore, and it's all comic book heroes. And to some degree, I buy it. I don't. There's certain people like anyone who stars in a Marvel movie outside of Robert Downey Jr. I do not consider a film star. I consider them a comic book actor.
Yeah, but I know what you mean.
But with Gosling, he is a film star. He is a movie star.
He is, and I think he's a movie star of the old kind, whether he intends to be or not, because he has that sort of quality that he exudes class, but he can also act, and he can convince you of the person that he's being.
It's like a modern day Cary Grant.
A bit, yeah, a bit. And if you think of North by Northwest, Cary Grant is that man who has to find the toughness in himself to deal with what's going on around him. you know. And in a film like, is it Notorious? Where he's a real unpleasant character, Cary Grant. Or is it Suspicion? It's one of the two, I can't remember now. But he's a really nasty piece of work. And, you know, and he's meant to be the hero.
Yes.
So
yes.
when you see Grant doing stuff like that, it's really rewarding. It's so fulfilling because you think he's being more than just Cary Grant now. He can sell the Cary Grant persona with his eyes closed. You know? And I feel a bit like that about Gosling. You know, if Gosling needs to do a romantic comedy, he can do it. If he needs to do a tough guy role like this, he can do it. If he needs to be a tough guy who's got a comedic edge, he can do it. That's the nice guys.
Yeah.
You know,
if you need him to be young Hercules, he can do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. If you need him
Those
to be
who don't know, he was young Hercules in like the early 2000s or like late 90s, early 2000s Fox Kids show that I used to watch. So I've technically been a fan of Gosling since I was a child.
Since you were a nipper. You know, and if you want him to be Ken in Barbie, he can do it. You know, whatever it might be. So I'm glad that they didn't go with Jackman for this. Because I think it would have taken something away from it. That's not a criticism of Jackman by any means. But I don't think he was right for this. I think we got the star we deserved.
No, I totally agree. I'm happy that I mean, as much as I love Hugh Jackman and stuff, it's hard to not see him as Wolverine. It's like Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's hard to not see him as that first because that's just who they are, you know. Should we dive deeper into the casting of Old Drive? This is one of the strongest casted films of all time,
without a doubt. It's like I said before, I don't think there's a single bad performance in this.
I don't think so either. I really don't. I think one of the just carrying on a little bit more with Gosling before we move on to the others. It's not part of his ability as a fantastic actor was that he had like 160 lines in this whole movie, something around there. A very short number of lines. He doesn't say a lot. He's silent and he uses micro expressions to convey so much.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things when I remember seeing this for the first time that just literally stunned me. I was like, I am getting so much from this character, but he is saying so little. And it's something that actually happened in the production process. The Refn and Gosling, as they worked on the script, kept trimming back the driver's dialogue.
They cut a lot of it.
Yeah, and I think it was definitely for the betterment of the film.
I think so, because what does he need to say, really? What does a character like that need to say? Because I don't really want him wisecracking. You know, the wisecracking comes with Bryan Cranston's character.
Yes,
you know that the motor mouth
Shannon
dialogue. Yeah, and you're getting that. So, what does the driver need to say? He doesn't need to say. Really, all he needs to say is that opening monologue that I thought was going to be a voiceover when I first saw it, but you know, brilliantly is on the phone.
Yes,
you know, and they do a Dirty Harry thing of they repeat it to show that it's his mantra, like I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 5 shots or 86?
I love that.
They show that it's his mantra, and that's what he says to everybody that comes along. You know.
Yes.
So, and that's all he needs to say, doesn't it? Because those are his terms. Everything else is just he don't want to be involved or interested.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Cranston's motor mouthing. What's so cool about that is even that wasn't necessarily planned. Cranston ad-libbed a lot of the motor mouthing because he was like, "Oh, this character is very silent, so I just need to talk all the time."
Yeah, as a contrast, it worked.
My God, did that performance? That was just fantastic. How they bounced off each other like that.
Yeah, it really is. Really is good. Well, that's what can happen when you have two, not necessarily film stars, movie stars, TV stars, whatever. When you have two class actors.
Yeah, I mean, again, Bryan Cranston is just. I'm currently watching Breaking Bad at the moment, and I in general, I just love Bryan Cranston in just about anything. He is again, he is someone who's like, you are a powerhouse of an actor. Like, you can be the goofy dad of a sitcom family, or you can be the most disgusting anti-hero in television history and be lovable.
Unbelievable. I was just going to make that point, but no matter how horrendous you're being on screen, I never out and out hate you. Because you bring something to it that makes it a rounded character rather than just a villain, or whatever it might be. And he does it with such ease, Cranston. He's so good.
He is. Fun fact, Bryan Cranston starred in a 1998 episode of The X-Files that was called Drive. And he is more or less stuck behind the wheel of a car, driving a car the whole episode. It's an interesting coincidence that I think should be noted.
How many years before this was that then?
Well, this is 1998.
98, right? So what's that? 13 years, isn't it?
Something like that. So I think that episode was written by Vince Gilligan, who liked his performance so much that he then cast him in Breaking Bad as Walter White. So that's and then it's because of Breaking Bad that Refn wanted Cranston to be in Drive. It's all connected. It's all connected.
There's no such thing as a coincidence.
No, I think it's Carey Mulligan is also very, 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 very good in this. Similar to Ryan Gosling's character, she plays a lady named Irene. She also doesn't say a lot. She says more. I feel like she says more than Ryan Gosling's character, but she also conveys a lot in her actions and in her silence and those micro expressions as well.
Yeah. I think she said, making this movie was just like days and days of me staring in silence at Ryan Gosling.
I mean, yeah.
But again, what does Irene need to say? Because everything about them, really, for me, is said in 2, maybe 3 scenes, and that is when he first meets her, and there's like sort of like a little mini montage of them doing stuff. And then after the elevator scene, which we will come on to, when she slaps him in the face, those 2 scenes say everything that I think I need to know about these two and their attitudes and how they think about things and how they how they end up viewing each other. And then the fact that she goes to his flat after, in the final scenes of the film, bring that story to a conclusion, and it's a very, very touching conclusion. Don't need dialogue for that, do you? Necessarily, if it's this well acted, I don't think I do.
No, I have to agree with that. I mean, we can might as well talk about the romance before we dive into some of the other people, because I really, really liked the romance story of this movie. It's very noir in that you have a hero who's in love with a girl who cannot have her, who cannot have a happy ending, particularly when it comes to love and relationships. But what's also interesting is Refn is quoted as saying that he was inspired by John Hughes films for this romance. So when you think about John Hughes, you think like The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink and 16 Candles. But what's the common denominator is that you have the pretty cheerleader type, popular girl who gets with the rebel, right? And
fair enough. Yeah, I did wonder where he was going with this, but yeah.
Well, he didn't actually say this. This is my inference of what he's saying by that, because you have these 2 juxtaposition characters of, in the real world, these 2 probably wouldn't get together, but something about each other is pulling them together. But then that relationship will eventually implode, but also the relationship is quite sweet. When it kicks off, like the grocery store scene, which I mean, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but that really reminded me of The Long Goodbye.
No, yeah, definitely.
The grocery, because he goes to the grocery store and gets food for his cat.
That's got to be done on purpose, surely.
Possibly. It's one of the few that I didn't see referenced in my research, but it feels a bit sort of obvious.
It
that,
feels like it's just too obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
Yes.
can't just be an accident, that.
No. So, I mean, I love the meet cute in the elevator, but that real moment of when he's at the grocery store and her car is broken down and he just walks out, doesn't say anything, looks over, and just walks over to the car, and then instantly it snaps to them being in his car and they're driving around. And what's really interesting to me is that's the choice of song, Real Human Being, is playing at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
Which, love the music in this. We'll talk about music in a bit.
Talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
But I also, as they're driving around town and driving down the river, the LA River, where it's not full of water, where they shot like the Terminator and stuff.
Yeah.
If you notice, this is the only time in the film where everything is like golden and heavenly, and everything is perfect.
Yeah.
They even have a moment where they sit in the woods by a creek.
Yeah.
You know,
all very sort of hallmarkish.
Yeah, but done in a way that doesn't feel hallmarky. Though.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
just it's the twee romance, and this is what I mean about being a mini montage of time passing and their relationship developing. But the film doesn't waste any time in showing us in any detail that we don't need.
Yes,
you know, that's I admire that. I really do. That sort of pared down screenwriting and direction, I suppose.
Yes. You get so much mood from them. So, like, for example, like in the scene where Ryan, the driver and Irene go for a drive, and he's not talking, but she says that her husband is getting out of jail and coming home in a couple of days. And there are moments where they're together and driver isn't speaking, but you can feel the affection. But when that moment happens, even though he doesn't say anything, that silence says so much about how he's feeling.
How he's feeling.
And
because you know how you would feel, don't you?
And
you meet a girl that you finally think you might have a chance with, or you might have a romance with, and she says, "My boyfriend's doing this, my husband's doing that," whatever it might be. It just so happens hers is getting out of prison. You know how you'd feel. You don't need him to say it, do you? You just need, because because it's a universal theme of, like, we've all been rejected, haven't we? We've all had things happen that make you go, "Oh no,"
Yes.
And so dialogue it would underline it too much. For me,
yes,
it would weaken the moment.
Yeah, it would be too much telling, and I think this I was going to say, this really, really emphasizes how amazing the actors are in this film.
Yeah,
because it's putting so much reliance on the actors to convey the emotion through so little, through eye looks, through glances and twitches of the mouth, and you know what I mean, just very, very, very little, as I keep saying, micro expressions, because that's really what this film is a masterclass in. It sort of reminds me of, in many ways, the very opening scene of BBC Sherlock, which we won't get into why we like or dislike the show, but the very opening scene of that is Watson talking to a psychiatrist.
Yes,
and
yes,
it's what Watson isn't saying that's being screamed.
Yes, absolutely.
It's very, very effective. And this film is an hour and 40 minutes of, saying so much with so little, and having the right actors to do this. Because, like, I if we can use Hugh Jackman as the example, I don't know if he could pull off what Ryan Gosling is doing in this.
I'm not sure he could.
No Slade, on him. I like you, but I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know.
No, I don't know, but I'd like to think he could, but my suspicion and my gut says I bet he couldn't, or it certainly wouldn't be as good, and it wouldn't be quite the same. I don't think. It'd do something different, perhaps. I don't know, but what Gosling does is, I mean, it's that old actors thing in it of saying so much without doing anything.
Yeah.
It's like Anthony Hopkins in that Howard's End, is it, or Room with the View? Howard's End, I think it is, where he's the butler and he's just like he's been brought up to never show emotion, and he doesn't. But when he falls in love with this woman, he retains that, but behind his eyes, he's saying so much,
Yeah.
And that's a masterclass in still acting, what I call still acting, which is, not going over the top, because the camera exaggerates all your like little ticks and expressions. So when you say these are micro expressions, they really are, which means he's actually not doing very much at all, because the camera's picking up and exaggerating what he is doing, and they still look microscopic.
Yes,
it's a great piece of acting. This, you can dismiss movie acting as much as you like, but when you get someone doing what Ryan Gosling does in this, then you have to admire it. I think this is stunning work.
I mean, we can sort of segue that to a bit of a tangent on the cinematography, maybe, because the cinematographer was Newton Thomas Sigel. He's done a lot of films that I like. Unusual Suspects, X-Men 2. He also did Superman Returns. He basically likes to work with Bryan Singer, it seems.
yeah.
But what I will say is all of those films, even though Superman Returns is a sucky film on a script level.
Let's not talk about Superman Returns.
Yeah. Visually, all of these films are fantastic. And all of these films give you the opportunity to see what's happening and watch the actors act, rather than up in your face shaky cam kind of stuff. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, so do I.
So much.
So do I. And you do get it. I was going to mention The Usual Suspects, because you do get this famous scene where Kevin Spacey is sitting in the police interview room, or whatever it is, the cop's office, and it's a mid shot on him, but you can see him looking at that notice board, and you see his eyes flickering, and he's looking all around it, and then you only realize the significance later on. But the fact they've taken 30 or 40 seconds to just show you nothing but that, means that payoff is even more impressive than you think it is. And it's all about letting that actor just do what he needs to do, and letting him and lighting him and keeping the camera on him long enough for him to do it. It's finely tuned. That's what this film is.
Yes.
It's finely tuned work.
Yes.
Yeah. And nothing happens for longer. No scene is longer than it should be. No scene is too short.
Yeah.
Everything makes sense. It's a linear but very tight narrative, and everything works towards that ending.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Something else that I loved on still kind of sticking on the cinematography bit was just the way everything was shot. Like I said, I like that there isn't shaky cam stuff. I like that everything is wide angled. I like that there are really interesting angles inside the car, but that remain wide. So you'll have this interesting wide angle inside the car where you might be seeing half the dashboard and only seeing Ryan Gosling's face or a piece of it in the rearview mirror. And then you're also seeing like all of the road in front. Like there's just really cool angles that happen throughout this whole thing, but also just the way LA looks in this film brings LA to life in a way that I haven't seen for a very long time. Now, interestingly, this film kind of Drive does have an 80s aesthetic to it. From the clothes have a bit of an 80s vibe to it, from Ryan Gosling's jacket to the type of some of the cars that he's driving to the general look of LA and the buildings and things like that. But there's also lots of modern stuff. So it's not an 80s movie or a modern movie pretending to be 80s. It is a modern film, but it just has an 80s vibe to it that I love. And interestingly enough, in my notes, I wrote that this is making LA pop in a way that I feel like Lethal Weapon made LA pop.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And because both of these films capture LA on screen in such a vivid way that I just feel like a lot of films set in LA miss. Like, I feel like LA is a character in this film, and that's because of the way it's shot and the kind of places that they choose to shoot as well. They're not hitting big typical landmarks, except when they're doing like big skyline scenes and aerial views, looking down, which are all fantastic looking. But
Yeah.
I just love the way this thing looks. We're talking about all the acting being fantastic, but another big, huge component of that is the fact that this thing is just shot like a beast.
It is, yeah, it is. Absolutely. And you're right. LA does feel like a character in this. It feels like it's almost as if the city is saying, you're all like this because of me. You know what I mean? You're all like this because of what I do to corrupt you all. It's like the gods in Greek drama. You know what I mean? Without overstating it, that's a bit melodramatic way of putting it, but it's like that's the feeling I get on it, because too often people say, well, the city's a character in the books or the films, and you think, is it really? Is it? I don't think, not always.
No.
But this shows an LA that you haven't seen before.
Yes.
It's almost like Chandler's LA, but not quite, because it's Refn's LA. And the way it is presented is somehow comfortably familiar from all those old film noirs.
Yeah.
But strikingly new, and that paradox is there for a reason. Because you're seeing things that you are expecting to see, but they're done in such a way that you see them afresh. And I think that is bloody clever. That is.
I agree. The other thing that's quite cool is the cinematographer Siegel didn't use any handheld cameras. He's not a fan. He avoided it for this film, apparently, which I like it, because I could easily see this film in the hands of another cinematographer, particularly doing any of the chase driving scenes, just getting a little much.
there's a great example there, because there are two films. This one aside, there are two films that I always reference if you're talking about car chases. Bullet is an obvious one.
Yes.
And The French Connection is the other.
Yes. Now,
famously, in The French Connection, Gene Hackman is really driving that car at speed through traffic, and Friedkin's in the back with a handheld camera recording it as it happens.
Yeah.
And I say to myself, an actor driving a car through crowded streets of a town, a city, with a director in the back seat with a handheld camera, does not make The French Connection car chase. Not everyone can do it. A piano player can play the piano, but he can't necessarily create a Mozart symphony. You know what I mean? So what I love about this film is that car chase at the beginning, and all the others really, but the car chase at the beginning especially, where there is no handheld. I love the fact there's no handheld, because it would remind me too much of The French Connection and would run the risk of paling by comparison. That's the whole point. That's the point I'm making. So reference it, but do it differently, so that I don't make that comparison. But I say, well, he's watched The French Connection here and Bullet, but this is his own take on it. That's where imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Because the thing for me is by not having cinematography that gets in the way, it made it, for this film, it made it just feel more authentic. I felt like I was there and into it. Also, they avoided using CGI, computer generated stuff, to kind of enhance things. But a lot of that came from budgetary concerns, which this is another moment where lack of budget ends up helping the final product in the end, because they can't rely on it, so they have to do certain things practical
Yeah, this is not in a slightly different way. This is the Jaws lesson in it.
Yes.
The mechanical shark isn't working. What are we going to do? And it improves the film tenfold, 100-fold. So same point here. Yeah, the fact that they couldn't afford. I don't know if there's no CGI in this or just a smattering of it. I don't know. If there is any, I couldn't necessarily detect it.
There's little bits here and there.
There might be a bit,
but it's it's not like in your face CGI stuff. It's just really basic.
Yeah, it's not. What's your phrase? Fake as shit.
It's not. Yeah, it's not fake as shit.
There's nothing in there that makes me go, that is fake as shit.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I regular listeners will know that I am not necessarily a fan of the overuse of CGI. And I prefer practical effects where possible. And this film gives it you, thank God. And it looks all the better for it. It looks all the better for it.
Yeah. It does. It does.
And I think that does Gosling not do a lot of the driving himself? I think I read
he doesn't drive. He does some stunts. But the way the car was set up is that it's kind of like a driver's ed car where there's a driver in the other seat. All
right. I thought I'd read that he did some of the.
He did some of the stunts, but not all of them. He did do some stunts, but when a lot of the times when you're in the car with him, a lot of that is done with the stunt driver next to him, so that basically the stunt driver can drive and Gosling can focus on acting, which works
sense. Well for me.
Yeah,
works well for me.
It makes sense. Should we talk about Albert Brooks as Bernie Rose, the big mother effing gangster?
Yeah,
who's smaller than Ron Pearlman, but is bigger than Ron Pearlman in this.
Absolutely, and as far away from what I suspect people will think Albert Brooks is.
That was one of the big reasons why he took this role. He liked the fact that he was being cast against type. He that was a big appeal for him, which I'm like, I like it when they do that with certain people. One director who I think does that surprisingly well sometimes is, even though I don't like all of his films, but is Christopher Nolan. I would never have cast Heath Ledger as the Joker. No. What do you know?
Yeah, what do you know?
History,
Yeah, well, the same happens with Brooks in this on a smaller scale, perhaps. But he is outstanding in this.
Yes,
he's everything this role needs to be. He is dangerous. He is quite funny. He has moments of.
He's funny. Humor. He's kind of a nice guy,
and he's a nice And in the end, he ends up just trying to say, "Look, we'll just all walk away. It's done now. It's finished. It's over."
Yeah,
But there's a bit before that where he says, "Things have gone wrong, and now I need to deal with them." And he has that horrendous. He attacks Cook horrendously in the pizza parlor. Chris Cook, who's like who's a gangster that is all embroiled in the pawn shop robbery. That was a vicious attack.
Yes.
And what I love about that is, if there's a spoiler coming, that attack shows the ferocity of Bernie Rose, which is the character's name. And then when he confronts Bryan Cranston's character, Shannon, he's almost paternal, if that's the right word, because he slashes him in such a way, and he says, "That's it. It's done. There's no pain. There'll be no pain.
Yeah,
it's all done." Total difference to the attack on Chris Cook in the pizzeria.
Yeah,
which is absolutely animalistic in its brutality. And you think, well, this is a madman. This is a violent psychopath who knows when really he's killing a mate of his. Because 2 minutes before he does that to Bryan Cranston, he says, "Such a shame," because they're going to get this racing car set up, aren't they, for Gosling to drive as a legitimate business. And he says, "It's all such a shame," Brooks says, I always wanted to see my name on the side of a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now it won't happen. And he's genuinely gutted about it.
He is. He is. Even his final scene with the driver,
With the driver, yeah.
would try to get the money back and just end it all. It's you feel the kind of the sadness in his voice. There's an interesting quote from Brooks that he says in terms of his character of Bernie Rose, that Bernie, he doesn't get up in the morning thinking about killing, and he's sad about it, upset about it. Says it's a case of, look what you made me do. And in the case of Cook, in the case of Shannon, in the case of Driver, that is how he approaches every single one. Two of those he's coming at from genuine, like, really don't want to have to do this, but this is how the chips have fallen. And when it comes to Cook, he's doing that to Ron Perlman, saying, look at what you made me do. You made me kill this guy because you fucked up. Yeah,
you made a mess, and I've got to clean it up. Yeah, and and he does. He has that. It's almost conciliatory of saying, look, it's not personal. I don't mean to do this. I've just got to, really, because otherwise we're all in a mess. You know what I mean? And that is psychotic, but but it's genuinely charming as well. And I don't know about you, but when he does what he does to Bryan Cranston, and in a way the driver in the final scene, I do feel a bit sorry for him.
I do too. Yeah,
I do feel a bit sorry for him, because I think if Ron Perlman's character, whose name escaped, Nino.
Nino. Nino.
They call him Izzy. If he'd accepted the driver's proposal of just giving the money back, maybe things would have been different. And I think that's what Albert Brooks's character, Bernie Rose, is saying to everybody.
Yes.
And Cranston says he offered to give the money back. The driver offered to give the money back, and he has to say, "But Izzy is Izzy." So he was never going to accept it. And now look where we are.
Yeah.
And that's right. This isn't my fault. It's never his fault. As he's absolutely dissecting poor Chris Cook to pieces in a pizzeria.
Yes. One of my favorite scenes with Bernie is when he first meets the driver, and the driver is just shown, he's been driving around the track, showing him how he can handle a race car. And he goes over to, Bernie extends his hand, and driver just says, my hands are dirty. And he's like, so are mine.
So are mine. Yeah,
and it's like, that's such a badass line.
Yeah, what a great line that is. What a great line that is.
And also he shaved his eyebrows. I can't remember if we said this now, but he shaved his eyebrows to give him a more menacing look, because there's a lot of expression comes from your brows, and without eyebrows, sometimes it is odd. It's odd.
Yeah, it is odd.
It
is odd. Huh. And it took me, I'm trying to go back to when I first watched. I thought there's something not right about him, and it took me a while to realize he's got no eyebrows.
Yeah, that is it. I also,
and it's that there's something odd, and I don't know what it is, that is unsettling for me. Not the fact that he's got no eyebrows. It's that for a minute you don't know what it is. There's just something off kilter about this man, and I find that quite chilling, I have to say.
One of my other favorite lines is when he's talking in that same moment when he shakes the driver's hand, and he kind of gives the driver a bit of a backstory about himself to set up why, basically establish, I am a gangster, just so you know.
Yeah.
But that bit where he's like, I made movies in the 80s. One critic called them European. I thought they were shit. I'm assuming that's some sort of commentary on the director himself, on Refn, being a European director.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly.
I feel like there's something there, but also there is a very sort of there is a stigma or a sort of I don't know. There is that cliche of arty European films, that pervades in America, I suppose. But that was another really fun line that from Bernie, that he really steals every scene that he's in. He
does without
so much life
comes
from him.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. He's an absolute highlight in this film. is Brooks, and it really is a standout performance, and it should have got much more accolade than perhaps it did.
Yeah, I think my gut tells me that part of the reason maybe it was overlooked, or if it was overlooked, I can't really say if it was overlooked, but if it was, I'm going to say it would have to do with the fact that Gosling and Mulligan are just doing so much with so little, and it was so impressive. And if you think about other driving movies at the time, we're talking like Fast and Furious, big, dumb, stupid,
big
action driving movies.
Video game movies, yeah.
Or you think like Mission Impossible movies are out at this time. You know, it's big action, but this is incredible action. The driving scenes are incredible, but the character work is so rich across the board. Yeah.
This doesn't sacrifice one for the other, which so many action films, if you want to put a label on them, do. They either think the action is what people have gone for, and they're almost scared to do the characterization in case people think that's boring.
Yes.
But the reality of the matter is, if you've had a really good, we said this on The Fall Guy, I think, if you've had a really good action sequence, what you really need is a bit of come down time.
Yes.
Because that action sequence has been an assault on your senses, you know, and has wound you up because you've been so excited. But I'm assuming it's been well done. So excited by it that then you need to find out a bit more about the people as a bit of a come down time.
Yeah,
that balancing act this film excels at.
Yes,
and I can see, you know, compared to the Fast and the Furious, this is a bloody art house film. You know, this is much more than just an action flick, isn't it? This is an intelligent thriller that is also exciting.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
But the reason it's exciting, this is all very circular, but the reason it's exciting is because you care about the people who are in the excitement themselves. So you want the driver to escape. You want him to be with Irene. You know, you want the kid to be all right, Benicio to be all right.
Yeah.
You sort of want Brooks not to have to eviscerate people in pizzerias. You know, because you care about them. So I don't care about anybody in the Fast and the Furious.
but those films are about family.
well, I'll take your word for it.
Well, that's what they say. But I mean, interestingly enough, kind of on that trail of thought a little bit, the dinner scene right before the big job that the driver does with Irene's husband, Oscar Isaac's character. There's this moment where Oscar Isaac's character starts, his name's Standard, I think his name is, starts telling his son, "Oh, do you know how I met your mom? You know, oh, you know, she was, you know," he says she was 17 at the time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then, and 12 months later, you know, and then Irene, he's like, you know, what did you say to me? And she's like, oh, I was, you know, I said, where's the deluxe version? You know, so it kind of shows that Irene, even though she's quite quiet in this film, actually clearly has some wit to her.
Yeah.
And you can see her saying that, even though we've seen her say very little. And in and amongst this scene, while Isaacs is just gushing over his son and Irene, it's swapping back to look at Irene and it's swapping to look at Driver. And you can tell that Irene is really contemplating her life choices in that moment.
Yeah, definitely.
And Driver is clearly annoyed that he can't be with her because of him, but because he loves her and wants this boy to be okay, he will hang around and do the right thing, even though he can't get what he wants, and that is undying. You know, he can't have the relationship with Irene, and
he wants the family unit that that Standard has got, and perhaps the driver thinks he doesn't deserve.
Yes, and then that scene is capped off so nicely with Driver looking, well, not with Driver, with Irene looking quite sad and forlorn. Yeah. While Oscar Isaac's character is saying, that was the best day of my life, while he's tearing up. And she's just like,
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and all the dialogue. Well, the predominant dialogue in that is Oscar Isaac.
Yeah,
it's her reactions, and the way it's framed so that Driver's in the middle of them, literally in the middle of them. He's not sitting there by accident. And so you've got this gushing, how great my life is because I'm married to this woman on one side, and her looking at him saying, I don't think I want to be here anymore. And him saying, I don't do anything about this.
Exactly.
If that ain't a noir triangle, I don't know what is, Luke.
Exactly. And also on those like quiet moments, and this thing, like this is where it's like, I mean, I do love a good action scene. I love a good fight scene. I think of like Out of the Past, that fight scene that all happens mostly in shadow is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
fabulous. But the things that really, when I think about certain films that I love, it's always these quieter character moments. And one of the fantastic moments in Drive is when the driver is at he's at a diner eating some pie or something like that, a bit like Taxi Driver. And some guy comes up to him and says, "Oh, hey, I know you. You drove me and my buddy back from Palm Springs." And Driver just looks at him and he says, "Shut your mouth." Or what does he say? "Shut your mouth." He says, "Shut your mouth, or I'll keep your teeth, or I'll like shove your teeth down your throat and shut. I'll
force your teeth down your throat and shut it for you," or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, because that guy's like, oh, all right, sorry, my bad. And just like the tension in Gosling's body as that guy is talking, and he doesn't want to even like look at him, basically, was just, you can feel it. And then when he turns and says that, you're like, oh my God. That Refn described Gosling's transformation as sort of werewolf-like, using the elevator scene as the big transformation for him. The elevator, the big murdery elevator scene, not the initial sweet meet cute elevator scene. And
yeah, the second one. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I think about it in that respects, it is interesting. There is a Jekyll and Hyde aspect to his character, I think. Subtly.
There is, and that's why he has a scorpion on his back and his jacket. Because and he says something to is it to Ron Pearlman, where he says, your guy was a scorpion, he didn't make it across the river.
Yeah, the scorpion and the frog.
Scorpion and the frog from it's an Orson Welles film. Confidential, what's it called? Can't remember now. Anyway, so it's an Orson Welles film, and it's the old story of the scorpion on the frog, and he says, "Take me over the river."
Yeah.
Frog says, "No chance, because you'll kill me."
Yeah.
And he says, the scorpion says, "Well, if I do that, I'll drown, won't I? So I'm not going to kill you." And halfway across, because he does, and the frog says, "Why'd you do that?" sort of thing. And he says, "Well, it's my nature."
Yeah.
The werewolf is like the assassin side of the driver. That is it. Yeah. That is his nature, which is why he has a scorpion on his back.
Yeah.
And that's the Hyde, if you like. And the Jekyll is the movie stuntman.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it is there.
Almost nice guy.
Almost nice guy. Yeah. And the fact, some people will look at this film and say, "Wow, that's a cool jacket."
But it is a cool jacket.
And it is a cool jacket.
Have a copy of that jacket.
But it is saying something about him. It's saying something that matters about him. So that's filmmaking. That's great filmmaking when the jacket is there for a reason. That sort of detail is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I agree that he is like a werewolf. And that the demon inside him is sleeping until it comes out, and people like that bloke in the diner make it come out.
Yes.
And then he brings it out when almost like a sort of superhero identity as well.
Yes.
Like he brings it out when he knows he needs to do something that he can't do as a stuntman. So he has to be the animal. So brings the animal out. You know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, when we gushed over Love Lies Bleeding, and as I was watching, I made many comments about Drive during that discussion because so much of Love Lies reminded me of Drive. And
yeah, absolutely.
In the way that the bodybuilder, is hulking out is very much in the same Jekyll and Hyde aspect of how the driver is werewolfing out when he needs to.
When he needs to.
And he did his best to keep it hidden from Irene, but when her life was in danger in that elevator, he had no choice.
He has no choice. I love that.
But to show her his other half, knowing that he will never see her again now.
Which is why he kisses her first.
Yes, and I love it. It's such a romantic moment, and you just, because he's earlier, just before it happened, she slapped him because he's like, look, I got this money, you can take it, you can run, blah, blah, blah. She slaps him for it. And then she goes down the elevator with him, and this guy's in there, wrong floor motif keeps, cropping up throughout the film. And he knows, okay, this guy is here to kill her and her son. I have to protect them, and the only way to do that is to do this. But he is, as Refn described him, as a hopelessly romantic knight, and this is the knight kissing the princess that he'll never be able to be with.
The maid, that he'll never be able to be with.
Yes,
this is Lancelot and Guinevere.
Yeah, and I tell you what, the juxtaposition between that sweeping kiss moment to then squelchingly crushing a guy's face.
Yeah. And there's
few films can handle that.
And it is an immediate change. It's an immediate change. There's no build up to it almost.
Yeah.
You're in that kiss, and then suddenly someone's head's up against the elevator door. Without any warning. Apart from, isn't there romantic music playing when he's kissing her?
Yes, there is a score. I think it's the score that it's the track is called Wrong Floor, and that track always plays when they're together. Always.
And then that stops and is replaced by his grunts. And what is really, I said before about the sound, this is the scene that makes me praise the sound, because the noise that head is making is really bone chilling.
Yes, it is.
It's really bone chilling. And what I also like about that is, whilst I'm not a prude by any means, quite the opposite, really. But the fact you only see one shot of the head is fabulous.
Yeah, it's all you need.
The rest of it is all concentrating on the driver, because that's who we are invested in.
Yes.
So, if we'd seen the head being smashed to a pulp, it would have been gratuitous, because it would be happening to somebody we don't care about. We don't know no notion of.
Yes.
If anything, we want him to die because he's here to kill our, the man that we do care about. So, and the woman that we care about. So, I would be dead against any more than we get in this, because the sound, just like the music in the shower scene in Psycho, does what it needs to do and tells you everything about what you need to know is happening. So does the sound effect in this, and Gosling's face and his actions as he's being shot from below.
Yes,
it's a brilliant sequence.
It is. It's one of two very violent scenes that really stand out to me. The other one is the hotel scene with Blanche. And like every good film noir, you need a femme fatale, and Blanche is that. So she's played by Christina Hendricks, who is her trousers are very, very, very tight. In this,
she's not in it much, but my God, she packs a kick.
She pops.
She does. My God.
I mean, she's a gorgeous woman. Let's be fair. She's
a beautiful woman.
Stunning woman. So Refn was considering porn actresses for that role. Funnily enough, he couldn't find any with acting talent.
What a surprise!
But one of the porn actresses who he did speak with is the one who is one of the topless women who has a speaking role later in the film. Yes, and it's because she could cry on command.
Yeah.
Take of that what you will.
Make of that what you will. Yeah. So Hendrix, she's not in it long. Doesn't have to be in it long, but she makes such an impression.
Yes.
In more ways than one. But what I really like about that, I like the cockiness when you first meet her, and Chris Cook says, why are you rolling your eyes at me? And has a real go at her, and she just sort of gets up and walks off.
Yes,
that sassy attitude, and then the genuine panic, fear when she's looking in the motel bathroom window before her head explodes, essentially.
Yes.
And
well, I mean, I would back it up, and I would say the fear of once they're in the hotel room after the pawn shop has gone bust, and Driver clocks this. She knew.
Oh yeah.
And then this is probably the big moment where your Driver has done some stuff, but here you're kind of like, oh, okay, crap, because he slaps her in like, and it's very violent and unexpected. Very violent. And you're like,
doesn't he say something like, look, they're trying to kill someone, and they're just trying to kill us, and you're lying to me. So how about we have the truth? Otherwise, I am going to hurt you.
Yes. And she's just lying there, and one hand is on her, and he's just his other hand is just in a fist above her, and he keeps every once in a while extending his index finger.
Yeah, that's right.
And pulling it back, and it's so violent and so tense, and you're like, up until this point, you've really, even though he's been doing some bad stuff, you don't really dislike Driver. But here you're like, oh wow, you're going very far now. You cannot be considered a hero in any way.
No, absolutely.
Particularly after this moment, I feel.
yeah, this is the turning point for it.
You can crush a guy's head, but it's like when you're slapping women around, I might have to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What does that say about society? I don't know.
Well, but yeah, I take your point. Like you do have to. There is a line where you do say, well, he isn't who I thought he was, essentially. Because it's been set up that he doesn't want to get involved in all of it. That's why he only gives them 5 minutes. And as an aside, is a getaway driver that you can only rely on for 5 minutes any good?
I guess it depends on your job, as in your what job you have to do. If you can't get your job done in 5 minutes, and I'm assuming this is going to be based on like response times.
I'm guessing so, yeah.
You break into a place, response time is 8 minutes. You got 5 minutes.
Does your getaway driver not need to get you to a place of safety? I mean, I don't know. I've never robbed a pawn shop or needed a getaway car.
Well, no, the 5 minutes is 5 minutes from like the break-in or the whatever the crime is. You have 5 minutes to complete your crime before we need to get away.
Ah, that's good. Right. I'll buy that.
That's what that is. It's not that I'm only going to give you 5 minutes. It's because the initial opening chase scene, that would have taken much longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You have 5 minutes to get your job done, and then I got to go. And if you're not back in 5 minutes,
I read it in a review. I read it in a review, and I thought, oh, what's that about? But yeah, I'll buy that. It's 5 minutes to get the job done. After that, I'm gone. Yeah.
That's definitely what that is.
But back to the wider point, it's he's someone who gives you that 5 minutes, and then he says 1 minute either side, you're on your own. So that's what he's got, But because of Irene, he gets more involved, and when he gets more involved, his nature comes out, and his nature is to do bad things.
Yeah,
that's the werewolf point again. So, but this is the first time you see him do it to somebody that you really do think he shouldn't be doing it to, as you rightly say. Someone that's there to kill him, he gets in first. That's self-defense. Arguing about self-defense. But he's gonna hurt. It's called Blanche.
Blanche.
Because he wants information. That's torture. Yes. That's not self-defense, Ryan.
No.
I can't justify that, really.
No, I mean I guess the ultimate reason it's happening is because the job was a setup, and that means Irene and Benicio are still in danger.
Absolutely, yeah. But he needs
that's
to know.
ultimate, but it's still shocking. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah. But he needs to know, doesn't he? He needs to know from her who was behind it.
Yes.
So he needs the information, and he frightens him into giving it. But it's that sinister, I will hurt you, rather than a lesser film would have thought it was being clever by describing what he was going to do. No. Less is more. Less is more. Just the fact that he's capable of it because we've seen it, and that he promises to do it is quite enough for me.
Yes,
because otherwise it becomes gratuitous, and that's pointless.
It's a bit like that scene in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. All I have to do is squeeze. Yeah, you're like, oh my god, Indy.
Yeah,
jeez,
absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Limey. Our hero, everybody.
Yeah.
Should we talk music?
Every time. That gets me every time, though.
No, me too. Me too. Should we talk music for a minute?
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of the score to this. So the score is done by Johnny Jewel from Desire and The Chromatic, and then the general composer label who has a composer label is Cliff Martinez. So Refn just wanted Johnny Jewel to do this score, and he did a lot, but for some reason at the last minute the studio hired an actual composer to come in and do the official score, and then they ended up using a lot of samples that were already done. I couldn't find out why that happened.
I couldn't find out why either.
It's interesting to me, but I can't. I mean, if you go on Spotify or whatever and you look up Desire, you look up the Chromatics, they have fantastic stuff. Like they could easily have scored the film themselves. I listen to them all the time. They're great.
Yeah, I don't know why it happened. All I could find out was that it was at the last minute, and the studio did interfere, if that's the right word. So Refn just says to Martinez, "Well, look, these are the sort of things I like. Try and come up with something similar," which strikes me as just being, why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. But I have to admit, other films of Refn's, their scores are terrific. They have a very similar 80s synthesizer Europop flair to them. Like Neon Demon, I'm so annoyed that I can't get the Neon Demon score. It's fantastic. I would listen to it all the time if I could. The film isn't as great as I would have liked, but the music is wonderful. It's fantastic, and it's similar to this. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Cliff might have done the score to Neon Demon. And you know what? I tell you what. Why don't I just... music was also done by Cliff Martinez. So clearly Drive set up a collaboration between these guys that has been successful throughout. Because I also think Martinez did Only God Forgives, which...
he did.
Yeah. So, this... Cliff's score is fantastic. I really like the score itself. But also the stuff from Johnny Jewel is wonderful. Yeah, I just wonder why the studio pushed it. I wish I knew.
I was just going to say that. I don't say that the interference. I don't say the involvement of Martinez was a bad thing.
Definitely not.
Because it is great, and it is very ethereal and ambient and sort of, not quite of this world sort of thing. It's sort of trippy. It's a bit. It reminds me a bit of Angelo Badalamenti. And his work. The guy did the soundtrack for a lot of David Lynch films, certainly Twin Peaks. A lot of it reminds me of that synthesizer, not quite real sound.
Ethereal sort of vibe.
That's the word. And but equally, I think that the Jewel stuff is really good. So, like you, my question is, they both could have done it individually, and I would have liked it. I like the collaboration, if that's the it's not quite a collaboration, but the sort of merging of the two.
Yeah.
But I wonder why they bothered.
Yeah, I don't know.
One or the other would have been great, So
I think so. You touched upon something there when you were talking about the score, and that is the sort of the ethereal aspect. This film does have a sort of dark fairy tale like vibe. Everything is sort of fantastic. There's an element of fantasy throughout this, and it comes across through the score and through the music that you kind of feel this of our world, but just slightly askew.
Well, again, like Love Lies Bleeding, it's the world that we recognize it. Well, and a bit like Albert Brooks's eyebrows, there's something not quite right about it.
Yeah,
that it isn't quite the world that we live in, but it's close enough to be uncomfortable that things like this happen in it. Yeah, but there is something, and again, as I mentioned at the outset, that it reminded me a bit of a David Lynch film, and it does in that respect, because his are definitely dark dream films that are like dreams.
Yeah, dreams. Yeah,
but again, they take place in a world that you can sort of recognize.
Yes,
there are towns like Twin Peaks, for example. Like, Mulholland Drive is a real place, or whatever it is. But they're not quite the David Lynch version.
No, yeah,
and.
Drive is an LA nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. It's an LA nightmare.
That is.
But it's a nightmare I enjoy having.
Same. I want to relive this nightmare over and over and over.
I don't always want to relive David Lynch nightmares.
No, that goes a bit too far from me. So we mentioned earlier that the book had a sequel, geniusly titled Driven.
Yeah, I mean.
Obviously there's been lots of speculation as to would there ever be a sequel, but back in 2016 Refn was like, he said nope, not gonna happen. But also interestingly, Ryan Gosling has a no sequel rule, which is why he was apparently offered the role of the Joker for the Suicide Squad, but turned it down because he basically was like, he basically says he wanted to do a sort of comic book film. And he's always sort of wanted to, but the idea that you're trapped into all these sequels, he's always been opposed to doing. And you sort of mentioned earlier, the driver is sort of a superhero. He is sort of like what's his name off of Sin City?
Marv.
He's a bit like Marv, isn't he? Like he's just a violent brute trying to do the right thing that is what he is.
He is also a violent brute trying to keep control of the violent brute within him.
Yes.
The old Hulk TV series. Can control the raging spirit that dwells within him, as that Ace narration says. And that's what the driver's doing. That's what but eventually he has to Hulk out.
Yes.
But he hulks out for the right reasons, if you know what I mean. He hulks out for the same reason that David Banner hulked out, because someone's in danger. Sometimes himself, sometimes others. So, I'd saying he's a superhero, I think maybe one step too far, but he's certainly a comic. I can imagine him as a comic book character in a series of comic books based on this film.
Yes. I mean, he's been linked to various.
He would have been a great Captain America. I think Gosling would have been a great Captain America.
I can see that. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, he's been attached to like Ghost Rider. He's been attached to films like Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four. His name is always floated, but I'm assuming the reason he's never gotten anywhere with them is because he has a no sequel rule. So,
well, I'm not sorry about that. I have to say.
I mean, I am, because I want a Nice Guys too. Damn it.
Sorry, no, about the comic book thing.
Okay, yeah, sure, fine.
I'm not sorry that he's not in superhero films, but the no sequels. I mean, I know he's not. Blade Runner's a sequel, isn't it?
No, he has no sequel rules.
Yeah, well,
for him, as in he doesn't want a sequel for himself.
Right. Well, you know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah. Not that he won't. He's happy to be in a sequel. He doesn't want to be in a sequel to one of his films.
Yeah, I get that, but come on. Anyway,
I mean,
Anyway, but A Nice Guys 2 is long overdue. I certainly agree with that. We should have. We were robbed with that. Definitely. Yes. Would I want Drive 2?
Honestly, no.
I don't think I do. No, because I quite like the idea that you don't know if he survives that final scene or not. I know what I think.
Mm.
I don't think he does.
He drives away and then 5 minutes later crashes his car.
Yeah. But
a post-credit scene of the car just smashed into a light pole.
A telegraph pole or something. Yeah. But equally, he could have got back to Russ Tamblin's dock and stitched himself up or whatever and carry on.
Yeah.
But the story for me is complete because he's done what he had to do. He knows that he can't ever have Irene, really. And, she knows that it's not going to happen as well. Because when she knocks on his door and he doesn't answer, she just walks away.
Yeah.
That's a good noir ending for me.
I love that. That is, yes.
I don't think I would watch it, certainly, but I don't think I would necessarily think it was as good as this or necessary. A bit like the two Jakes.
Yeah, sure.
I think it would suffer too much by its own comparison to its predecessor for it to be judged fairly, I think is how I would put that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. An interesting tidbit is that there was a lawsuit against the film Drive. A woman decided to sue because she got the impression from the trailer that it was a car chase film like Fast and Furious and didn't get what she thought she was going to get, so she sued. I don't think she won. I just know that was something that happened, and I thought everyone else should know. And I find that,
Thanks for that.
Hilarious.
This is like the people who sue McDonald's because the coffee's hot.
Yes, you did just order coffee, you dumbass.
Yeah, or they sue because there's no Big Macs left or whatever. You know what I mean? Oh, come on. Yeah.
Well, I think.
Well, thanks for sharing it, Luke. That's an interesting tidbit. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. It pulled everything together in the end, didn't it? I think it's time to rate.
Yeah.
Drive. I'll go first. 5 Falcons. 5 Falcons for everything I've said. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5.
All right. Well, I will say for everything I've said, 5 Falcons. If you don't already own this film, go and buy it tomorrow.
Yes.
If you
get it,
if you do own it, watch it again. And if you've never seen it, get onto it. It's absolutely fabulous.
It's I will say at the moment of recording, it is on Amazon Prime. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. But I'm like, hey, go buy that very nice looking 4K. Go buy that 4K.
Yeah.
Some wonderful features on there as well.
Get it in the collection.
Yep, it's well worth it. A must, as I said at the beginning, it's a must have. If you're a noir fan, and this is, I genuinely believe this is one of the best neo-noirs, as in neo-noir in general, but also one of the best neo-noirs of the 2010s. Without a doubt.
Easily, yeah. Like I said at the beginning, this is as neo-noir goes, this is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a better praise for that. 5 Falcons from both of us, and comments like the ones we've made.
Yes.
Neither of us have said anything particularly sort of negative about it, because I don't think there's anything negative to say about this film.
Honestly, my dislikes column is empty.
Yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about this movie. I have no little gripe or nitpick, and I'm like the king of nitpicks. I have none.
Yeah, I can't see anything that warrants, removing a wing from.
I mean, what Christina Hendricks' trousers could have been tighter. I mean,
you're obsessed. Yeah. No, I can't see anything.
Those trousers were obsessed.
I think this is one of those films. If you find something negative about it that you try to convince somebody is a valid argument, then you are going to lose. I think, because there's nothing really valid to say that means this isn't a Five Falcon film. No way.
No. It's superb. Well, that wraps up our investigation. We'll be back next week with another case. In the meantime, please like and subscribe and be sure to take care walking down those mean streets.